Okay. So I want to talk about anger in divorce. You could be angry at yourself for marrying the wrong person. You could be angry at your ex. Obviously, most people are. Even if you have a really amicable divorce, there's anger involved. And anger is actually healthy. It's an emotion you have to go through to get to the next step. And I wanted to dedicate this episode to anger because anger is good. Like I just said, it's good to feel anger, but if you stay angry too long or you let it influence your decisions, there could be some really, really bad outcomes. So that's what I want to talk about today. And my guest is Sherry Morris, an attorney turned divorce coach, a parenting coordinator. And Sherry, you have been a divorce coach how many years?
Almost 10 years now, Jackie, full time.
And did you agree with me about anger? Tell me about your clients and how much anger is involved.
So, first of all, I really admire the way you just came out with it. I think it's true. We all have anger in divorce. We can pretend otherwise. We can not admit it, which is worse. We can acknowledge it, which is great. And yes, I think to some extent, everyone in divorce has anger. And what we know about anger is that it masks those underlying emotions like sadness and hurt, right? So we can have anger as kind of we feel that's the first thing that occurs to us, but I see it in everyone, and how it manifests is really important. And then in particular, it's really important how we cope with it.
And the people I worry about when I do my DGS consults with
Yeah.
people are the ones who are not that angry. I'm not saying I want everybody to be pissed and act bitter all the time. That's not good. But I'm saying it's the people who say, like, it's okay. Like one woman said, my ex had cancer and it made him reevaluate life. Well, I'm very sorry that her ex had cancer, but
Right.
that doesn't mean that he should just decide he wants to get divorced. She has a right to be angry. And when you go through that emotion of anger, it allows you to say, okay, now I'm done being angry and I'm moving on to the healing phase. Do you agree?
I agree. It's really part of the larger process of grief. And this life transition brings grief, right? So moving through it, acknowledging it is so important. And I think that's what you're pointing out.
So I want to tell my listeners, Sherry, we were just talking about this before the podcast. She's like one of the most well-known divorce coaches in the industry. She wrote an article for Divorce Girl Smiling called My Advice for Steaming Mad Dad and His Anger and Divorce. And Sherry wrote this article based on this email she received from a guy who was really, really angry. And the advice she gives in the article is what I want to talk about today. The three crucial reasons why you need to bring your best self to the table right now. And not that you can't feel the anger, but don't use your anger in decision making. So, Sherry, these are so important. I'm going to list the reasons and then you explain them further.
Sure.
So, the first reason is if you make a decision, bleh. If you make a decision about your financial future based on anger, tell me what is going to happen with that.
So, in general, anger is so escalating and so not in line with maybe what's best for us, but rather a reaction rather than a response. And those are really different things. So, what happens if you make financial decisions is you may not be doing the best thing for you, for your kids. And even if you think it's good for your ex, you're really sticking it to him, for example, that may not be good, for example, for your co parenting relationship. So, do you really want your ex to struggle? It doesn't serve your children. It doesn't serve you. So when you make decisions that are reactive out of anger, rather than contemplating, giving that some time to simmer and think it through, it's bad for the whole family system. But really, if we're focused on you because you're just mad, it's bad for you.
So let's get into how a divorce coach can help you ease this anger and make good financial decisions. Now, Sherry's not a financial advisor, but she used to be an attorney, or I shouldn't say used to be, you're still an attorney, but you got involved in litigious cases, right? And so tell my listeners what you do to help them put this anger aside and talk through the best financial decisions.
So I think one of the most important things we can do is slow down and calm ourselves to de-escalate. So what I do in the first instance is get the story of the divorce. What's going on for this person that they're so escalated? Once I know that, we can work together to take the steps. So I immediately say, and if your listeners want to practice to do, go slower, slow down your thoughts, your breath, your body. Lower the temperature of the room, lower your escalation, lower everything so that you can contain the system, contain and focus on what's really going on. And the result of that process is to get to a calmer space. So we have to understand where you've been to process that anger, to get beneath the anger to the hurt and the sadness and figure out what's going on for you so that we can get to the other side and act in your best interest.
And what I love about divorce coaches is when somebody works with a divorce coach, you get it all on the table. You get to vent and say everything mean and nasty you want to say about your ex. And when you get that out, your mind is then open to saying, okay, I've gotten that off my chest. Now let's talk about Sherry. What do you think I should do about the house? I really don't want to keep it. I was just angry, so I wanted to take it from him. And then Sherry will say to you, well, let's talk about what it looks like to keep it financially. Let's talk about what it looks like to get a place and let's figure out how much you can afford. And then, do you know how many women, Sherry, I talked to who were like, I really wanted to keep the house. And then I realized it was a huge mistake because I was making these huge house payments and I had no money left for anything else.
Oh, it's such a common dilemma that it's one of the things in all of the certifications I know for divorce coaching. It's a separate module. Should I stay or should I go? Should I keep that house? And so it's not unusual. And what I have to do often with clients in recentering them, bring them back to those core values that we set after the anger dissipates. Because guess what, Jackie? You won't be surprised to know it bubbles back up. And sometimes we have a tendency to want to be reactive again. So we come back to center. We look at the numbers. We say, what's better for you, not what's worse for them. And that's a key and core value that we have to establish at the front end to do the best work in this process.
See, and it's like, do you love yourself more than you hate your ex? And
Beautiful.
that's it comes down to that.
It is so, so true. And in the beginning, it doesn't always feel that way, which is why coaching works, because we need to remind each other of what matters in the long run, not what matters in this moment, in this instant, as you talk to your children, as you leave your life, as you change so much that you've been used to. Whether you're the one that's angry because you're leaving or angry because you're being left, both of the things can be true, but we're looking at the long term and we're going to reprioritize those interests again and again throughout the whole process.
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And I'm here today with divorce coach Sherry Morris, a parenting coordinator. She also does discernment counseling and works with individuals to help them get the best divorce outcome possible. We are talking about anger and her advice for a steaming mad dad. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we have two more crucial reasons that this is the time to bring your best self to the table and try to put your anger aside as much as possible. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And today we're talking about anger, specifically 3 reasons you need to bring your best self to the table and try to Get your anger under control. My guest is divorce coach Sherry Morris. She's been a divorce coach for 10 years. Before that, she was an attorney. Sherry's also a parenting coordinator, a discernment counseling. She does transition coaching. And what am I leaving out?
I do a lot of co-parent work, and I will work with a couple that is divorcing throughout the process to help them navigate. And that is a really important piece of what I do, Jackie, because sometimes having the space to talk to each other with the support of coaching makes all the difference. Even if they still have separate lawyers and are working out property and kids, this is a safe space to have conflict without it escalating.
And also, I bet you see people who are really having a hard time co-parenting, but their ex wouldn't even consider coming to see you, but they can go to you for strategies to help deal with his anger or bitterness and to
It's one
try
of
to
my
co-parent even under the most difficult circumstances.
It's one of my favorite things to do because it frees people from the prison they think they're in because of a toxic co-parent. And it's not your prison to be in, it's theirs. And I will help you get to the other side of that.
Love it. All right, moving on to the second reason why it's the best idea to bring your best self to the table and put your anger aside, your emotional health. So let's talk about that.
So what I notice for people is when you're so angry, right? When clients come to me and so angry, it's like that expression, they're drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer or right to die, and they don't, and we don't want them to, even though it may feel like that in the moment. What we really want is to live our own next best life in the best way we can, and the way to do that is to take care of yourself. We can never control, Jackie, and I know you know this so well, the other. All we can do is control what we do. So if we are spending all our time complaining, feeling angry and bitter about the other person, then we're not living our best life and our emotional well-being is not well served. So there are tools and tips we can use to practice, and that's what it is. It creates a habit over time of not focusing all our attention on the other person, but rather de-escalating ourselves to do better. And your emotional health will be so much better for the long term.
So Sherry, do you know that guy Bradley Richardson? He's got a big Instagram following. I don't really know what he does. But he's got a huge Instagram following, and I had him on the podcast maybe about a year ago. And I'll never forget, he said this thing to me that I think is going to help my listeners so much. He goes, if you're sitting there and you're angry and bitter, what do you think your ex is doing? He's off in Cabo with his new girlfriend, soon to be
Yeah.
wife. He's not thinking about you. So why are you thinking about him? He is off having a good time. Not even, he hasn't looked back once. So knowing that information, why would you even give him the satisfaction of being angry and bitter and thinking about him instead of saying, I love myself so much that I deserve to be happy. And the only way to do that is to flush out my anger, feel validated, and then work with my divorce coach, come up with strategies to, like you said, Sherry, get into these patterns of letting that toxicity go.
I love it. And you know, it's right and it's true and it takes practice. And we don't expect anyone to have this perfected ever, but the more energy we put into the other side of anger, the more benefit we will have from it.
Now, I want to talk about, I should have done this at the beginning of the podcast, but I want to talk about this now. Let's like list some things people are angry about. So, because I think people are listening and they might feel good and validated to know. So, I'm going to name a couple and then you think of some, Sherry. So, like, obviously, you're angry if your spouse cheated. You might be angry that oh, he took 25 years of my life. I wouldn't, he ruined my life. I said that. I was like, he ruined my entire life. Um, what else? Angry. I would have never quit working. He forced me to quit working and stay home with the kids. Um, he never treated me nice. Remember that night 15 years ago when we were at that New Year's Eve party and he was a big jerk to me? I mean, it goes that deep.
Yes, it's about the kids. They're angry that they will have time with the kids or angry that they won't take the kids. You pick almost any issue that we encounter in divorce and you can see anger on both sides of it. So really it's a trigger for almost any issue you can think of that and let's talk about money, Jackie, right? People are mad about money and a lot of it comes from feeling they're not safe. They don't have enough. And so again, part of the value of anger is noticing what you're worried about so we can work on that. And once we can find safety on the other side of it on an issue like kids and money, then it can be okay.
All right, this is a great segue into the third reason you need to bring your best self to the table and try to manage your anger. Your kids are paramount. They love both of their parents, whether they're young kids all the way through adults. They have a relationship with the other parent, and even as much as you can't stand him or her, your kids love the other parent.
True, true, and true. And I think one of the disservices we do to our children is talking in a disparaging way about a parent that is in fact part of them, whether biologically or through adoption. They want to love this parent. They deserve to love this parent. So it doesn't just hurt your co-parent. In fact, it may not hurt them at all. It hurts your children. And I can't say, I shout it loud and proud, stop doing it right now. I know it's hard, but it's one of the biggest gifts we can give people is to not do that because it's better for their kids in the long run. And trust me, kids experience the conflict. This is the damage that's done in divorce. So if you can stop doing it, trust me, your kids will know who you are. They will see you standing beside them, honoring that. It's a long game, not a short game. They will know who their co-parent is. And at a later and appropriate age, if they bring you difficulties with their co-parent, which is really what you want is to be in their lives, then you will be able to address those things in a mature and responsible way.
All right, so two things you said that I wanted to comment on. First of
Yeah.
all, no matter how young or how old your kid is, they can tell, even if you say nothing and just give a dirty look, or you have to really be careful. Even if your kid is like a year old, they'll look at your face and they'll be sick in in their minds if they think you hate their dad. And the other thing I was going to say is, look, I'm not judging anybody. I talked plenty of bad, talked poorly about my ex plenty of times. I regret it. And like Sherry said, if you're doing it, it's never too late to stop. Just really try to stop. I know it's not easy. Talk to a therapist, talk to a divorce coach, talk to your friends, but really talking negatively to your kids it really, really hurts them so much. And I'm going to be honest, my kids have said to me, like, Mom, please don't talk about dad that way. We don't like that. So I'm not claiming that I'm Miss Perfect, but I didn't do it a lot. But there have been times where I've done it, and I really urge you to try to do it as little as possible.
And notice what happens when you do. You're lifting yourself out of a space that's not good for you. So do it in a self-interested way and do it for your kids. And I see the shift all the time. And again, like you said, Jackie, none of us are perfect. It's not a perfect world. We don't have to be perfect, but practice it. Just like all those habits of exercise, spending time with friends, self-care, this is another habit that you can practice. And pretty soon you've adopted it as just that.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I also want to say that I know this woman. And another woman said to me, I really like so and so, but every time we get together, all she does is like talk negatively about other people. So, not just your ex husband or wife. Don't talk about anybody. Like, one thing I can say about my son, I have a 22-year-old son. I have never heard him speak negatively about one person ever.
Wow.
And it is
Wow.
like, it's so refreshing because what is the what good comes from being negative anyway? Now, it's different if you want to tell your girlfriend that so and so hurt me because she said this. That's different. That's affecting you. But to just talk negatively about someone, it's just bad.
It's true, Jackie, and I want to put in a plug for a course called Positive Intelligence. It teaches us all these skills because what you'll notice is leaving negativity behind lifts us up. So if you have no other purpose than to make your life better, do it for that reason. And positive intelligence teaches us, again, how those little practices throughout the day change a life. And I encourage all of my clients to investigate it, to work with me on positive intelligence, and to keep improving their skills of empathy. And you find in the end, you feel much, much better for it.
Sherry, I just love all of this. Thank you so much for being here as always. You're such a great guest. You have the best advice, and I really appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Jackie. And again, I really like how you emphasize we're all in this life together. We're all practicing together. So don't try for perfect, just try for good enough. Don't let the perfect get in the way of good enough. We're all here together. We're working together to lift each other.
Yeah, you're right. Perfect doesn't exist. That's not even, but if you can, at the end of the day, say to yourself, I'm a good person, I'm a good parent, I'm trying the best I can. That's all anybody asks is that you try the best you can. And I really think that the less anger you have, not at the beginning, be as angry as you want. But if you can let that go, and that doesn't mean forgetting, forgiving, it means not letting that toxicity have that space in your head and making room for really good things and new people and your new life and happiness and health and having gratitude. You will be so much happier in the long run.
It's so true, Jackie. Thank you for sharing this important message.
Sherry, where can my listeners get in touch with you if they want to sign up for your free consult?
The best place to find me is deardivorcecoach.com. Tons of free resources for people, an advice column, parenting information, co-parenting tips and tools, and a free consult with me. Hop on there, you'll see what you need, and I would love to meet you.
And to my listeners, if you want to find Sherry and other trusted, vetted divorce professionals, come see me at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. You can also read articles, and Sherry wrote a couple of other really good ones, like What is a Gray Divorce and questions to ask if you're considering it. 3 reasons not to share the details of divorce with the kids, and many more articles written by Sherry and all the other trusted professionals and me, or listen to more podcasts, or download my mobile app, or sign up for my free consult, divorcegirlsmiling.com. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you real soon.